Hi, and welcome to the Surf Academy UK podcast. I'm your host, Ross James. This podcast is to help surfers of all levels up their game through coaching and training. All our guests have extensive experience in the industry and can offer great advice and guidance. So whether you're a beginner, weekend warrior, or just love to be in the water, follow us on this journey and don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay stoked and stay healthy. Welcome back to another episode. This time we are joined by Lisa Davidson, surf psychologist. So Lisa, tell us about yourself.
Yes, I am Lisa. I am 41 years old. I am from Sweden. I'm a psychologist and a therapist, mainly do hypnotherapy, and I call myself a surf psychologist, meaning that I apply all my knowledge and years in the mental health space and with therapy to surfers, basically. So my main sort of focus or work that I do with surfers is, you can kind of sum it up as self-mastery. It will be quite a lot on that sort of end of the spectrum in terms of therapy. So it's a lot about your relationship to yourself, because if you don't have a solid foundation, going out surfing, pushing the boundaries in terms of performance or in, the elements of surf that can be scary, frustrating, and all of this. If you don't have a solid foundation with yourself, as in a good relationship to yourself, there's a lot of things that can happen to either block your progress to get better or stop you from enjoying it. And basically there's a lot of stuff that gets in the way. I mean, most people know that surfing is very much a mental game. Like, there's a lot on the mental side of it. So I come in there, but I do work a little bit deeper than most sort of surf coaches that say that they work with, mindset and things like that. So I work with, deep therapy in terms of like your relationship to yourself and things like that. And on top of that, I also work with trauma, right? Because there's quite a lot of surfers who've had traumatic experiences in the water, near-death experiences, things like that. And that causes also a whole set of issues and challenges that I also work with.
So that would definitely go beyond the role of a surf coach.
Yeah, yeah. Most surf coaches maybe don't work so much about it, but then there's some that, are leaning a lot towards there and are really good coaches and good teachers. They can definitely tap into some of those aspects and be very good and supportive there. But yeah, they won't do therapy. They won't help you like solve your relationship to yourself, but they will help you maybe see how your performance differently and how you can think about certain things differently. So I do a little bit of that too, right? Because that's sort of the like surface things of what I do, because that's the mindsets that going to support your change and going to support sort of the going out and pushing the boundaries. Then what I do is how do you do that and keep and build a good relationship to yourself, or rather, like, I help them build a good relationship to themselves so that they can go out and do that.
What would you say is what's the most common sort of issue you're approached with when it comes to surfers?
Pretty much everyone comes to me and says something about fear, right? I have a fear of this, I have a fear of that. And whether that's, whether they put it as in like, I struggle in bigger waves, I get scared in these conditions. But what actually most people come to me about, I would say, either performance related in the sense that they get really frustrated with themselves and get really hard on themselves to the point where it sort of takes the joy out of it, Like, they've been trying, pushing and going for things and trying to learn and get better, but there's something there that makes it so that they don't get better. And that could they'll come to me and be like, I get scared when it's bigger. Like I have, fear of a bigger wave. But the bigger issue that's kind of causing more of distress and discomfort is how frustrated and angry at themselves they get because of it. So that's a big thing in what I do, because when we take away that, or when we work with that, when we can accept that, yes, I am shit scared, then it's much easier to sort of to work on that, because then you can approach it with sort of open arms and be like, okay, right now I'm scared. At what point am I not scared? Or where am I a little bit scared? Okay, let's work here when you're a little bit scared, instead of just being so angry at yourself for being scared. Because then that takes up all of the energy, and they don't really commit, and they don't go, and then they get so upset because it was a shit session and all of this. So there's this circus that doesn't have to be there.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. The other bigger thing I would say is sort of or is more the ones that struggle to take up space and feel like they're pulling back, and that's more of a social aspect. Like in the lineup, when there's other people, they have a hard time asserting themselves. That's a big one, right? But then they come to me generally also and saying it's fear of being in someone's way, fear of doing something wrong, fear of dropping in, or fear of messing up and taking away from someone else. So it's sort of always, the language is always around fear, but the issue is rarely fear itself.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're one of those that maybe you're relatively new to it, you haven't figured out, you've not really nailed forecasting yet and picking the right beach. People take
Yeah,
Cornwall, for example. A lot of people go straight to the main spots: Fistral, Watergate, maybe Perranporth. Or if it's Bali, they'll go Chungu, Uluwatu, maybe that nice little write off of Impossibles at the day. They'll go to these places where everybody's going. I mean,
yeah,
I was in Bali a couple of years ago, and there wasn't much swell. Ulu's was about shoulder to head high most of the time, so there's a little
yeah,
bit well at Yang Yangs and Green Balls. But then you get to Padang, Jimbaran airports, it was flat. Like, it was an absolute
yeah,
mill pond. Pretty devastating when you just dropped $2,000 to go surfing in Bali. Like, no, I should have bought a
yeah,
phone.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that did mean that you had to battle the crowds. I go out Uluwatu and there was 60, 70 people across, say, 3 or 4 peaks, because it wasn't big enough to really line up.
yeah.
And even as an experienced surfer and as a coach, you've always got a thing in the back of your head of, I'm not local. I need
Mm,
to be respectful of the locals. But at the
yeah,
same time, you are there to get waves, and some of them locals are going to be pushing students in right in front of you in a very dangerous way,
100%.
unfortunately. So, yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
that goes on, and I suppose overwhelm can be quite a
yeah,
contributing factor when it comes to it, can't it?
exactly. Yeah, a lot of my sort of advice, or the work that I do, is sort of like accept the slow journey of things. Because it does, like, what you're the good point that you're making here is that, when someone, if you go for a surf travel, you have a lot of expectations, because you want to like cram it in all in those like 2-3 weeks or whatever, if you're lucky to have 2-3 weeks, right?
Mm.
Then there's less room for that. But for the ones that surf regularly every day, it's so much about just slowing it down. Um,
Yeah.
Because,
I think
like, even when you go to these packed peaks, you can probably discount about at least 30% of the people out there. As in, like, they will not be going for all of the waves. They might just, sit there and be social, and they're not really, maybe unsure about things. Or some of them will just take the left and you're going to go right, how it is, right?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's also just looking at the lineup and seeing, like, I mean, if you come over, if you stood at the top of Oola's, we'll take that as an example. You're out there at the moment. A lot of people know of it. You look down, there's people coming past you, there's people in the car park jumping off the scooters, and then you look down at the water's edge past the dozens, maybe more, of people in the warungs, and then you
Yeah.
get everybody in a lineup. You're like, wow, well, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like I say, you can't discount a lot of them, but use that time to actually have a bit of a watch. There will be that handful that you can see catching everything, take a note of the board, take a note of the board shorts or bikinis or whoever it is that's surfing, and go,
Yeah.
okay, they shred, but they're the only one really catching waves off that peak. And if you're at a level that you can go in, surf that peak, paddle out, because they're going to catch a wave. And if no one else is catching the waves around them, then that gives you an opportunity to go, okay, well, Lisa's catching the second wave of every set. I'm going to catch the third because no one seems to be sitting after her. And just use that. Or just go, no, there's a whole bunch of locals in that peak. That doesn't exist to me anymore. Like, I'm going to leave them to it. They're having a great time. There's a surf school over there. But every 3 or 4 sets, there's a nice little set that swings wide in the middle here. And you can catch a little left or right there. And I think just having that time beforehand, we just come up with a few conversations with coaches of when you're doing your warm-up, when you're getting changed, scout the area from a safety point of view anyway. To make things easier, you can find the rip currents, you can find the best place for you to surf. And then if, for example, you're on a point break, you can just work your way up the lineup.
Yeah.
You're not going in for 30-minute heat. It might be a bit different if you are going for a quick surf at lunch.
But if you are going for a quick surf at lunch, it's probably your main spot and you know it really well.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, you can have a look. You can go, okay, this is where I need to be, and then work the way up. Would you say that there's any exercises or anything people can do to learn to calm themselves down a little bit? Obviously, you can use like trigger words for coaching tips. Someone broke it down a while back. I think it was on the Ombi podcast where he said if you think about all the movements in the bottom turn, there's like 7 points if you're really going to start breaking it down. To try and think of all of that whilst you're padding for a wave, making sure you're not dropping in, blah, blah, blah. That's a lot to think about. So you'll use a trigger point or a trigger word and go, right, this word relates to these 7 or 8 points. Is there anything people can learn out of the water so that when they get in there, they'll have a trigger word or a little exercise they can do to sort of calm down? Like obviously the SEALs had their box breathing, which I suppose could work. Is there anything you give?
Box breathing is good. There's a few other things you can do. But yeah, to just calm down your nervous system is you don't have to do specifically box breathing, but what you have to do is do the deep breathing, like when your diaphragm is moving, because the point of that is that when you breathe like that, when you breathe, do deep belly breaths and your diaphragm is moving, that doesn't happen unless you are in rest and digest. So when you're in fight or flight and when your nervous system is sort of like a little bit anxious and a little bit more high arousal, you breathe up here. So if you reverse that, with your physiology, by taking the deep breath, that signals to your brain that, no, wait, I am actually not in fight and flight. I am in rest and digest. So I can slow down the heart rate in reverse so that process. So that's a really good thing to do. And you can do that out in the surf, right? Like just take the deep breaths. Another thing what I tell people to do is to anchor the good feelings, so the good feelings or the feelings of succeeding or having a really good wave, like doing it the way that you plan to do it, so when you have a really good wave and all of it is lining up, to make sure to anchor that physically. And what the point of that is to repeatedly have this physical thing you do. Like it doesn't have to be physical, like you can anchor things with pretty much anything. You can anchor it, as you said, that's the same thing with the trigger word. It's the same process, same technique, which is like you're relating something bigger to something smaller, right? And it could be a word, it could be a movement. Like a common trigger is this, right? Like the thumb and forefinger. But something that could be easier to do as you're surfing, or like as you mid paddle or whatever, could be also linked to your breathing. Is you can breathe out, like do a longer out breath and sort of blow air on your upper lip, because that's a very specific sensory feeling. So if you do that, and then mentally you had a really good wave, you do that action, feel that on your upper lip, and like really at that point bring the sensation of like a great wave, a success, like I made it, and that will give you that positive feeling. Because from a positive and happy and like a sense of success, we're much, obviously all the challenges becomes easier. So when we're in that headspace and that frame of mind, going for a bigger wave, challenging, taking on the crowd or pushing outside of your comfort zone is easier when you're in that state of mind. So that's something that's really good to do.
Nice.
And that could be, and you could be, to calm yourself down or whatever it is that the thing is that the person needs to do. Like, what is their struggle? Is their struggle to stay positive and stay, like believing in themselves and challenge themselves? Then that's like the opposite of that is what you anchor, right? If your struggle is to remain calm and stay focused, then you anchor, that clarity and focus and, that tunnel vision. So you anchor where you want to go, and it'll be easier. It'll take a few repetitions, of course, but
yeah, okay, brilliant.
And the good thing is you can anchor also outside of surf, right? So if you like having something very successful, being very happy outside of surf, you can anchor that and then bring that into surf as well, because the mind doesn't know the difference whether you're succeeding at work or in surf.
Yeah. I think that's one of the points they made on the Ombi one was he was talking about surf skating, and how that obviously relates across, but even from that point of view, so as you're obviously he was using a bottom turn, and so you'd be practicing your bottom turn on a surf skate on a ramp or in a bowl, but as you're going through that, that's when you start associating a certain word, or like you say, the finger blowing on the top lip, your anchor. You put your muscle memory in then, that, like you say, when you end up in the water, it's there, it's embedded. And as you mentioned, your mind doesn't know the difference. You're still performing a movement, and that's where that connection is. It's with your mind, not really with anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
So I used to do a lot of skateboarding. I was never any good, but I enjoyed it. And I remember there was this one maneuver I really wanted to nail, and it was a layback. So you come up, what would it be? It'd be front side. As you get up onto the coping, you get the back wheels on the coping, put your hand down, and you slide around, stand up, and drop down. Of course, it's not that simple. And so every time I get to the point where I needed to bring my upper body up, like over the board a little bit more, get the weight placement correct before I could then drop in. And over and over and over again, I would fall or stack at the exact same point every single time. This went on for a month, maybe even a couple of years. I didn't skate all that regularly. It's every few weeks, maybe, if I was lucky. So I'd obviously built this pattern physically and mentally, more mentally than anything else, of you get to this point, you fall off. Do you have
you're expecting it,
Yeah, exactly. Is there any sort of, and I'm sure people do this all the time, including in surfing, where you can interrupt that pattern?
Well, yes. First of all, what I would try to do in order to break a pattern like that, because I mean, you can either approach it sort of mentally in the sense to try to retrain yourself. But then you need to know exactly what it is that you're doing wrong and put a different sort of placement and feel in place. And it will be the same as like you can sort of visualize it, train it, record scripts to yourself and listen to and sort of try to override and put a new thing in there, which you can do. It's not crazy hard, but you will have to know how to do it differently, right? Or ask someone and kind of get. But what I would rather sort of approach it with is shift something around. Like say that you're practicing this in the same place, in the same ramp, with the same skateboard, with, you know, like the same, like I would change something there quite drastically to get you out of your pattern, so to speak. And then I would also try to, because then something will be so different in your mind that you will expect a difference, and that should interrupt that pattern, right? Like you'll expect it a little bit less. And then I would try to achieve more of a flow state and more of a be more in my body, as opposed to trying to be very cognitive about it, as in like rely more on like, you know, do some breathing exercises before, meditate, you know, and try to get into that state or where you're just, and smile, right? Like that's also very important for that, because then we're in a much more relaxed state when we're smiling. And try to just do some movement and feel your body, feel all parts of your body, and try to stay in that, and then just like do it over and over and over again, but not think about it, whether you're succeeding or whether you're not, you know, and just try to be as much in your body and feel the movement rather than to try to think what to do. Because because I'm guessing that it's like, I don't know these technicalities or anything like that. That's not my expertise. My guess is that something is off, like either in your like balance, your placement on something, and your body will know what's off without your mind actually telling you, because it'll know, like, if I'm going to do a turn like this, I have to, you know, like, I'm sure that the body knows, and the mind is, you know, so try to disconnect from the mind and try to be in the body it would be my. But I say that without actually having studied this or know specifically. But from my psychological knowledge and training, I'd say that's where it's at.
I think you're right. Like, looking back, 'cause I haven't skated for a few years, I don't bounce well anymore. And I'd rather keep myself in good shape for the surfing.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I'm now living about a mile away from that bowl, and I'm like, do I have another go? Do I have any skateboard still? But yeah, I mean, for that instance, I wasn't getting my body weight up and over the board enough. So
yeah,
like I was talking about something similar to Bo Young this morning, and it's, so you've got, best way to describe it, you need your speed and everything else, but I was focusing too much on the style of it. I was trying to make sure that when I did my layback, I was there and the arms outstretched and get it all sort of picture perfect without actually nailing the fundamentals first. I think that was probably the main issue, that with a little bit of fear as well, because you're moving so fast. It's concrete and metal. You've got a wooden board with metal trucks on that can get in the way as well. And everything's in your head like, oh, if I mess up, this could really hurt. And so I think that combination of all of it, again, completely fully in your mind. Like, you're not focusing on the movement anymore. You're focusing on the negative side of things.
And the consequences, Yeah,
you're so stressed and blah, blah, blah. You're not really paying attention to where you need to be.
No, exactly. It is exactly like that. Your mind is going to go where you tell it to go, and your body will follow, right? So if you're constantly thinking like, no, I need to not do this, I have to remember to not do that, or like, so that I don't fall, then that's exactly what's primed in your mind and much more easier for the body to do. So you need to visualize what you're going to do, how it's going to be successful. So yeah, when we're in a fear state and have those images in our mind, that's much more likely what's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I suppose you can
Yeah.
come back to what we were talking about a minute ago, of finding a way to find that anchor and bring yourself back to the present moment
Yeah.
and get out of your head.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why that's there, in order to kind of snap out of a negative mindsets or fears or things, or to prime, to bring what needs to be at the forefront of your mind easily and quickly, because, yeah. And that, I mean, these are things that professional athletes do, right? In order to, like they had a, a heat, they had a wave. It didn't go as they planned, but they can't, you can't stay in that. You need to go move on to the next. And then to have something physically anchored that's putting you easier, flip that switch in your mind is what you need to do.
I think being able to come out of a situation like that and then go talk to your coach, talk to whoever's taken any video of your heat, or just your surfing. Maybe you're not competing, but coming back and being able to look at the footage and go, right, what did I do well? Which I know what I done wrong because I felt it at the time, but what
Mm-hmm.
went well for me? Because that can get clouded over, can't it? Like humans naturally gravitate
Yeah,
towards
I mean, we
negativity and
tend
drama.
to, yeah, exactly. As people, we tend to like, okay, what's the problem here? How do I solve it? And forget the good bits. So, yeah, I mean, that all depends on what your state of mind is and what your need is. So like, let's say that you're with a coach, you're like on a retreat, or, just, your everyday coaching thing. I would, from a psychological point of view, depending on how a person comes out of the water, like what are like the feelings that they're feeling. Are they feeling like heavy because the session didn't go very well and there was a lot of issues? Then yes, first gratitude. Gratitude is the best thing there is. As you said, like what did I do? What did I do well? What went well this time? What's good? And then bring in a little bit of gratitude. Like, okay, remember you actually get to be here and you get to surf. That's a privilege in and of itself. And ocean access. And to remember, like, because that will switch it around. Like specifically gratitude will switch a lot of negativity, like get rid of a lot of negativity. And then once you're back to sort of that positive and, okay, I remember I'm good at these things. I'm happy now, like I'm balanced. Then you can go and be, nitpick and analyze and things like that. But that's not going to go over very well if you're in a sort of negative and sad or upset mindset, because then you're only going to see what aligns with that mindset. You're only going to see the further problems and how you're never going to solve it and how you're never going to figure it out, whilst once you put that gratitude and that positive mindset in, you'll much more solution oriented.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Yeah, once you get to that point, then you can, like you say, you can dissect it. You can go, right, about my surf, I need to do this, or it might even be a physical thing that's holding you back. If
Yeah.
if you haven't surfed as much and your hips are a bit tight, or if we're going back to like what most of the listeners will be in weekend warriors, and you surf every couple of months maybe, and you work a fairly
Yeah.
sedentary job, then yeah, you might just need to do a bit more mobility work or get in the gym and train a little bit more. Because let's face
Yeah.
it, not everyone can surf all the time. I mean, I've had 1 week in Morocco, which was great. Although, as I
Mm.
said on the last couple of episodes, I did get heat strokes, so I didn't really surf as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
But before that, I hadn't surfed for about 3 months. So for me, I've had to get in the gym. I've had to keep myself active in other ways. I mean, I
Yeah.
found myself doing
Exactly.
triathlons this morning. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't run.
Yeah. No, that's the
But
worst bit about triathlons. I've done a couple, and like I'm a good swimmer, I'm a decent cyclist, and then everyone passes me when I run because I freaking hate that. It's like, it's the worst thing you can do
Yeah.
to yourself, in my mind. So yeah, I feel you.
I was so close to signing up to it this morning. I had to go to the post office and there's this little poster going, novice triathletes. Have you ever tried one? I thought,
Yeah.
not really. I looked at it. It was like 200-meter swim. I thought, well, I can smash that. That's fine.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah. 11K cycle. I thought, okay,
Yeah,
that's right. And then
also
a
easy, yeah.
2.5K run.
Hmm.
Or was it 5K run? No, 2.5K run. I was like, yeah, it's easy. But then I looked at
Yeah,
where
it should be.
the route was. And I was like, right, the swim's fine. That's in the pool. We'll do that. I do
Hmm.
that every couple of years for my my lifeguard test anyway.
Yeah.
I do double that. So I thought, right, 5 to 10 minutes swim because it's 8 lengths maximum. So I could even take my time on that one.
Hmm.
But then I looked at where the last leg of the cycle was. And it's
Hmm.
in a place called Winchester in the UK. It's coming up the hill from town up to where the hospital and the prison is. I've walked that hill many, many times, and I've seen some really fancy looking people in lycra on bikes, and they are
Yeah.
struggling. I'm like, I'm not going to do a run after I got to the top of that hill.
After that,
I've still
yeah.
got probably 1.5 kilometers to go after
Yeah.
the top of that hill.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was like, it
Yeah,
might even be a walk.
that is also that is the worst thing about doing a triathlon. And if you have never done it before, like the death, like the leg, like how your legs feel when you need to start running after cycling, it is next level. If you never experienced for it, you're gonna be shocked. You're like, what is going on with my body? Like I can't move my legs. That's how it feels. So you just need to, and it takes like it could take quite a bit of time before that, like that stiffness and all of that moves out of your legs. So yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. And after a hill, hell no.
Yeah, after 2 knee operations, I'm like, you know what? There's other fitness endeavors I can do rather
Yeah.
than triathlete. So, yeah, we'll have a look. Hopefully, I'll get some surf soon, and all this silly talk will go out the window. I'll get back.
Yeah, exactly. You won't be desperate anymore and
Yeah.
looking for crazy options. Yeah.
What do you find the most enjoyable part of your job then? Because there's got to be some interesting stories and things that have developed over the years.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what's most interesting is just, I mean, I love working with people and I love working with therapy and psychology. And when it clicks for people, when they have breakthroughs, when they're like realizing, you can just see like the moment where their life changes, because it's something that just like, wait a minute, I do that? That's right. And then when I do that, like I end up sabotaging myself. Like they see how their behavior, basically when it's the chain, right? Like they see their emotion that trigger their behavior, and they see how their behavior is getting in the way of getting what they want to get or going where they want to go. And they just see the whole chain and just know exactly what they need to do in order to change. That doesn't necessarily mean that the changing is easy, because there's an attachment to that behavior and there's some things going on. But that's like so fascinating, and it's such a rewarding moment in the therapy work when that happens. But then of course just, the stories, and when I keep getting updates sometimes by my clients. If you hear this, it's a lizard that's
I remember the sound of a
going
gecko.
going off in the roof. But when I get like updates from some of my clients, when they've had like all of a sudden they had like an amazing session, like they get barreled, or there's something happens that they're like, I thought I was never gonna get here, and now I'm here, and so those things and those stories and that I get from my clients are super rewarding and happy. But therapy work is fairly heavy work, so a lot of it is not necessarily what you would call enjoyable or like exciting, enjoyable. I mean, it is to me, because I love the human mind and I love the psyche and I love going through those transformations with people, but it is heavy.
Yeah.
And there's sad stories, because I mean, having a difficult relationship to yourself and being really hard on yourself, or the issues that show up in surf, these are the same. I deal with the same issues as any therapist would, any couples therapist, any or professional coach in terms of like business and things like that. Like, it's the same issues that show up in life and mess you up in life that's going to mess you up in surf. So it does tend to come with some tragic stories and tough and challenging things that have happened to people that they need to overcome and need to learn and understand that, relearn things about themselves. A lot of the work that I do is ultimately comes down to people feeling that they're not good enough the way they are. They're not lovable, they're not acceptable, they're all of these things. So there's a lot of pain. At the heart of that sits a lot of pain, and that's what comes out. Because people, when they go out and surf and they have really bad sessions because they're trying to push, they're trying to be somewhere, they have an idea that it's usually that they have an idea that if I get to this level, if I go out and I surf and I perform at this level, that means that I am lovable, or that means that I am good enough. But the thing is, it tends to not happen, right? Because there's such an attachment to there. So they're so scared of having been, like, their actions basically telling themselves that they're not good enough. Because that's what's happened. Like, when they fail, or when they're not delivering and surfing at the level that they think they should be surfing at, it reinforces and tells them that, no, you are not good enough. And there's a pain there, and that's the pain that they're trying to stay away from that pain, right? Like, the fear is coming into contact with that pain. And that's why fear is relevant in these situations, because that keeps you away from it. Like, you can't progress, you can't learn something new, you push boundaries when you're so scared of the pain that's going to happen when you don't succeed. Because the cost of failure is too high, and that's where people get stuck. So that's why you have to solve that for them. They have to work on that pain and release that pain, and then the world opens up.
So would you, because there's a term that's been going around a lot the last couple of years, would you say that that's essentially imposter syndrome? Is that what it could be described?
So imposter syndrome is, no, I wouldn't say that that's it. I mean, it's related in some sense, but so imposter syndrome is more like you feel like you don't belong, as in you haven't really qualified to be there, so you're not on the same level, so you're feeling like, and it comes with this like idea that everyone else is so much better than you and they've qualified and here you are and you can't do that. So that's, I would say that as it's all related to the same aspect, because I would say that person also has probably also a bit of low self-esteem, where they feel like they are not good enough, but it's more of in relation to something else, as in like not believing in your skill and not trusting that you get to be there. So it's sort of different flavors, but rooted
more
in
maybe
in your
maybe imposter is more from external influences rather than your own.
so that wouldn't be exactly. I'm talking about two different things, I would say, but definitely both related to the same sort of like inner issue, which is a lack of, a little bit of low self-esteem, a little bit of low feeling that your value is a little less than others,
I think,
than
and something
believe
like
others to be.
surfing, it's especially for those like countries like the UK, Sweden as well,
Mm,
where you've not got perfect reef breaks and warm water and everything that
mm,
goes along with the picture perfect surf scenario. And I think you look up to, and it can happen in a lot of sports, but surfing, I find, because it's never just about you. with surfing. Like there's so many variables, the ocean, the weather patterns, it all needs to come together. And obviously in Northern Europe, it comes together a lot less than in other countries.
Yeah.
But so to watch these pro surfers and go, I want to be able to do this maneuver. I want to do, let's take a snap, for example. Not the most complicated of maneuvers in theory, depending on what sort of wave you're riding, but it's everything else that has to come together to perform that maneuver. And then, so you see, take Ethan Ewing, like he's such a good power surfer, and the spray he gets off of his snaps and top turns is ridiculous. It goes 3 times the height of the wave. But again, you'll look and compare yourself to Ethan Ewing. You think, well, hang on a minute. I know he's not the oldest surfer on tour, but he's half my age and he's got as much experience as I have, probably more in terms of time in the water because he does it full time. He would spend a lot more time in the water when he was a kid. And I mean, take Caitlin Simmers. She's what, 16, 17?
Yeah, something like that.
And I don't know personally many surfers that could outsurf her. Like even guys in their 40s. I'm like, it's just a whole different level. So I think the point I'm trying to make is people, you can get as high as you like, depending on how much effort, time, dedication you're willing to put in. But there's something to be said for starting any sport at such a young age.
100%.
Again, I'll refer back to the conversation I had with Bo Young earlier. Now, I've looked at Bo and have been inspired by surfing since I started in 2003. And at that point, he was probably past his current halfway mark in his surfing life. He'd already been 2 times world longboard champion. His dad was a pioneer in surfing and had him in the water. I think when he was like, before he could walk, he was still on the board, like, and just being introduced to the ocean. And that's half the battle. Like being that confident in an arena that is ever changing and is never ever the same.
Yeah.
And then you got someone that lives inland in a almost surfless destination going, I want to do a snap like Ethan Ewing. I want to be able to be a dominant female surfer like Katie Simmons. You're like, let's just, I'm not being negative, but let's just bring the bar somewhere closer first. There's a fitness guy called James Smith, and he's got a really good way of describing like goal setting. Now, he's come from a personal training background and will say to, when his clients turn around and go, I want to lose 10 kilos, he'll turn around and go, how about we lose 1 kilo 10 times? And you're basically breaking down into baby steps. Depending on where your current level is, you could lose weight. You could lose a kilo in a couple of weeks. Or even if it took you a month, doesn't matter. You've lost that. And if you can keep doing that in the space of a year to 18 months or less, you could lose that 10 kilos. So you still got to the same goal. You've just adjusted your mindset towards it, which can, if you get 6 months into your weight loss journey of losing 10 kilos and you're not there yet, you can be like, I've just put everything in for the last 6 months. This is really depressing. This is hard. I don't want to do this. And it can send you off and your mind starts going. Whereas if in 6 months' time, you've surpassed your 1 kilo target 4 or 5 times, you got 4 or 5 wins. So it's exactly the same thing. It's just the mindset's changed and you've been a bit more realistic and smart with your goal setting.
Yes. I mean, that is important because there's it's that feeling of whether it's actually achievable or not, you know? And if you set a goal that feels very much not achievable at all, then your motivation is not really going to be as readily available to you, you know? When you feel like, okay, well, that I could do, you know? And then you just do that. So there's that point. But there's also interesting psychological research that says that when it comes to goal setting and like changing habits and like, you know, things like, you know, losing weight and starting to exercise, stop smoking and all of it. And there's research that says that the ones that chooses the, or like if you go for the grandiose goals that seems like so much bigger, they actually get closer to that goal than the people who put take the closer, like the smaller goals, which is interesting because but I don't really know what the mechanism of difference there, but there is something to say for like that when you believe and if you shoot for something that's like really, you know, far away, it can also end up pushing you a lot further along. But it depends on, like, there's different things that are going to be good for some people and different things that's going to work better for other people. But another thing that you kind of brought up, what I think is interesting, is that it's not about those grandiose and big things, right? And short sort of bursts of motivation when you're going to like change everything in the next 2-3 weeks. It's about showing up every day for many, many years, you know. And that's what it is about with surfing, because nobody learns to get great at surfing in a couple of months. It's years. So it's that consistent effort and showing up on your, you know, bad days as well, you know. And that's where it's at.
You got to put in that daily grind, and I think by all means have the big dream. I've got a big dream, and I think everyone that knows me knows what that dream is, and that's to have somewhere in Portugal. I'm talking about it all the time, and everything I do is a step towards that. Even over the last, when I look back at what I've done in the last 10-15 years of coaching and taking my surfing a little bit more seriously, I've looked, my goal is to have this bit of property in Portugal, relatively close to the beach, and help people get fit, improve their surfing, and enjoy life. In order to get there, you need X amount of cash, you need X amount of experience, and you need to be doing this. So even like my podcast and my clients and what I do for other jobs as well, if I need the extra income, they're all the 1 kilo goals.
Yeah.
My 10 kilo goal is Portugal.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And that is clear in my head. As soon as I wake up, when I go to bed, it is there in my mind the whole time. But I think to break it down as well and have that balance.
Yeah, that's extremely important.
Yeah. Make them a bit more achievable. Look, this is absolutely flown by. We're approaching the hour already.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, yeah.
I can see why long form content on YouTube's getting there now, because especially in podcast format, it's just easier to chat away. Even a gecko was joining in. So so if you could give 3 tips to someone that needs to, like, they've got a few of the common fears in surfing, like crowd size, maybe slightly bigger conditions, maybe they just haven't surfed for a while and they're a little bit hesitant. Am I going to be able to perform well enough on a busy day? What would be your 3 little nuggets of information?
Okay, so just to clarify, we're talking about someone who hasn't surfed in a while and they have some fears and stresses about probably how things are going to go the way they want and all of that, and the general concerns. Sort of the overall advice, and this will fit anyone with any issue, is to step 1 is to really be clear about what level are you at right now? Like where is, what can you do? And where are you super comfortable, right? And like, okay, waves in this size, this type of wave, this type of crowd, here I am completely comfortable. And to understand what happens, like, because then let's say you go on a surf travel and all of a sudden there's a new board and you're in a new culture and the time zone has shifted, there's a bunch of other people there and someone's going to be filming you, like there's a million things going on, and even if it's not that much, it could just be your regular day, but you're choosing to go to a new spot and you want to surf a little bit bigger waves or something. As soon as we shift just one thing out of this comfort zone, we start to get like aware of it, right? Like our system, like our nervous system start firing a little bit, like nervousness is there a little bit more. So your capacity to actually move far outside of your comfort zone is lowered by all of these things. So if you go on a surf travel when a lot of things change, you're going to be a lot less able to surf in certain conditions that are making you a little bit, nervous or whatever it is. So the first step is to realize this, be aware of it, regulate your nervous system for it, like do the breathing exercises in this. But then most importantly, have that compassion and like dial down your expectations, right? Because so many people think that they are, like last time I was on a trip, like 3 months ago, I could do it. And then they just like, you have certain expectations that you're going to be able to do it. And those are the expectations that are going to mess you up, right? Because you might not have been looking at all of these things, like how the conditions have changed. So that's my first thing, is to be very mindful of those things, try to reduce as much as possible and lower your expectations in those things. And that you'll surf, like you'll still have a great time. Like you don't have to like shoot for the bigger goals. And just be aware of where you're at and have like, self-awareness and then compassion with it, that those things are going to make it harder. And once that awareness and acceptance is there, it's going to be so much easier to do it. Brilliant. So that would be it. Like be clear about where you're at and match your expectations, because it's the only thing that might hurt your ego a little bit, but it's going to be a win on the surf experience side of things. Yeah. So that would be my first. Sorry, what was that?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. So that's step one, to kind of like set the bar where it's reasonable to set it, And then the other thing is to do the warm up and to learn to regulate your nervous system, because that's going to help you push in those times. And be also very mindful, or like not mindful, like but conscious. Approach things with with intention, as in like what do you actually want to achieve and do, and focus on one thing at a time. Like if you're like new and you haven't been surfing for a while, just focus on getting back into the water, having a good time, and take everything step by step, because so many people try to do everything at once and then end up collapsing the whole thing. Be intentional about it, because a lot of people are not. They just kind of expect to get better and expect that things to change without really being meticulous and methodical about it, and attack one thing at a time. Don't work on technique and work on getting comfortable in conditions at the same time. Get comfortable in the conditions first, then work on the technique, right?
Exactly. Especially like you said about fun. Like at the end of the day, we're not pro surfers. We're going to do a hobby, whether that's a Saturday on a weekend or if you are going on a surf trip. Like, are you being paid to do it? No. You just forked out money to go. Like, enjoy it.
Yeah. Exactly. And really the only thing that's, the difference between what's scary and what's exciting is the same difference as, like a glass is half full or half empty. It's very much your mind and how you approach things that's going to make a difference for your experience of it. So if you experience any surf sessions with like, what can I learn today? And what's the little one thing that I can learn today and focus on today? And even if the session ended up going shit and, like you didn't have that many waves as you wanted, what did, like you learned something, you experienced something, and to have that growth mindset rather than, and to look for those things like what you learned, that would be another good thing. And as a fourth thing, maybe I'll mention then gratitude, because at the end of the day, however it goes, remember that it is a privilege to have ocean access, be able to surf. be able to even have a passport that allows you to surf travel. A lot of people don't have that. And any kind of gratitude can change, just a little bit of gratitude will change anything immensely.
Some brilliant points there. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's been brilliant having you on. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Easiest way is my website, which is thesurfpsychologist.com. So that's also a super easy URL. Right there, like first page. If anybody is interested in working with me, first thing to do, just book a free consultation with me. And it's like right there. It's the first button you see. Easy, free 30-minute conversation. Tell me what you're struggling with, and I'll try to guide you on from there. And whether that's going to be doing some work with me or whatever it is, that's fine. So that's step one. And then always, my Instagram is also a good channel to kind of keep up to date with what I'm doing and getting little tips and tricks. The website is more for my long-term stuff. I have a bunch of resources and article about a lot of things, and that's a great way to get in touch with me. And my Instagram is great to follow in terms of just little tidbits of tips and tricks and things that I think about. Whatever new thing I have coming up, I'll be advertising there. And my Instagram is Surf Psychology by Lisa.
Perfect.
So,
well, I shall
but that's
put
also
links down in the show notes. And
okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
Again, it's been brilliant having you on, and your little gecko
Yes.
flatmate. And we'll have to do this again because there's a few more bits I think we could really dive into, especially
Happily. I mean, I love chatting about these things, so I'm open to it whenever. And let's do some deep dives into specific topics. That could be fun.
I might also have something coming up around this time next year, little retreat in Portugal. So we'll round 2 on trying to get that one going.
Brilliant. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Perfect. Cheers, Lisa. Enjoy the rest of your day,
Cheers.
evening.
Yeah. You too. Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Hi, I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you're interested in anything that guest has to say today, then please have a look in the description for the links. Please feel free to like, share and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next episode.